In my past life, on the day I achieved success and fame, I revealed that I had been bullied in high school. But Ruxia, the girl who had bullied me, couldn't bear the weight of public opinion and chose to take her own life. But not long after she took her own life, my fiancé, Xiao Mo, jumped from the wedding hotel building in full view of the media. Before he died, he left behind just one sentence: "All these years have passed, and I've even stayed with you to atone for her sin, so why won't you just let her go?" So when I was reborn, at the moment when Xiao Mo rejected Ruxia's confession and she took revenge on him, I chose not to call the police to stop her. In this life, I refuse to be bullied again by someone who isn't worth it. Ruxia committed suicide. It all started with an interview. In my first interview after winning the Best Actress award, I spoke on camera about the dark days of my high school years when I was bullied. As soon as the interview was released, countless curious netizens flocked to it. Fans had been digging deep to find out who was behind the school bullying incident. And so, thanks to information leaked by a number of insiders, that incident of school bullying, which had long been buried by the passage of time, was finally brought to light 11 years later. I know this girl. She was the school beauty, Ruxia, who was in our class at the time. One of my friends was cornered by her in the school restroom just because she was pretty, and she almost disfigured her. Back then, she took advantage of her family's wealth to bully her classmates at school, and her dad always used money to smooth things over for her. I remember the school bullying incident. It caused quite a stir at the time, and I think it almost ended in a fatality. Ruxia was originally supposed to be expelled and sent to prison, but for some reason she was released later. Apparently, she repeated a year and retook the college entrance exams. School bullies deserve to die. People like that don't deserve to live. I can't even imagine how much courage it took for Xiang Yingho to finally reveal her old scars to the outside world. Online public opinion virtually stripped Ruxia bare, with a flood of condemnation and insults pouring in. Virtually everyone who had been involved in the incident at the time was dragged into the controversy. Ruxia's family business went bankrupt, and her husband, with whom she had been married only a short time, divorced her because of it. By the time I realized the situation was beyond my control, it was already too late. Ruxia suffered a mental breakdown. She left only a single "I am sorry" in social media before jumping from the top floor of her home. On the night the news of Ruxia's death broke, I was with my family and friends, preparing for my wedding the next day. That's right, I'm getting married. I chose to marry the person I fell in love with in high school at the peak of my career. The moment I heard from a friend that Ruxia had taken her own life, I didn't know how to feel. At that moment, I felt like I had made a mistake. Maybe I shouldn't have exposed my past struggles to the spotlight during the interview, but I just can't let this go. That bullying incident back then nearly cost me my life. I can't remember how many nights I woke up from nightmares, nor how long it took me to emerge from that dark period. But while I was suffering terribly and struggling to come to terms with the hardships I had endured, what was Ruxia one responsible for all this doing? She had long since put everything behind her, traveling far and wide with friends on vacation, holding an acceptance letter from a prestigious foreign university, and sharing inspirational quotes on her social media feed. The very person who nearly ruined my life hasn't paid any price for it, still living it up as she pleases. How am I supposed to swallow my pride and let this slide? If Xiao Mo hadn't been there for me back then, I'm afraid I would have taken my own life in the school's artificial lake that winter of my sophomore year due to severe depression. I did want Ruxia to pay the price, but I never intended for her to die. I didn't know if I'd done something wrong, but I took out my phone and instinctively reached for the keyboard to text Xiao Mo. Xiao Mo, did I do something wrong? I waited anxiously for Xiao Mo's reply, but he didn't respond for a long time. My friend came over, patted me on the shoulder, and told me not to overthink it. It's not your fault. It's just karma. You didn't do anything wrong. Don't dwell on it. Besides, we all agreed that on the last day of our singles night, we wouldn't bother each other. Don't worry about it, just enjoy your last night as a single person. My friend said this, snatched my phone, and flung it onto the nearby sofa, then pulled me over to chat with a few of the bridesmaids in the group. I wasn't in the mood that night. As I looked at my phone, which was lying on the couch with the chat window open to Xiao Mo. I couldn't shake the feeling of unease deep inside. As it turned out, my hunch was right. Xiao Mo committed suicide. On the top floor of the building where Ruxia committed suicide. He jumped from there. When I arrived at the scene in my wedding dress, my eyes wide with fury, all I saw was blood everywhere on the ground. Along with the phone Xiao Mo had left on the rooftop which the police had given me. There's still a message on my phone that Xiao Mo didn't get a chance to send me. All these years have passed, and I've even stayed with you to atone for her sin, so why won't you just let her go? I didn't have time to figure out what that meant because I passed out. When I woke up in the hospital, it was already noon 3 days later. As a newly crowned Best Actress, I also found myself trending on social media after being criticized by netizens over the news that the groom had committed suicide on our wedding day. That's right, the insults made it to the trending list. It all started when an observant netizen discovered Xiao Mo's secondary social media account. This account was created 10 years ago and has been updated ever since. It chronicles his deep, unrequited love for a girl. But that girl isn't me. 10 years of full 650 days and nights and 500 posts, each ending with a single sentence. To Ruxia, the love of my life. The fact that the newly crowned Best Actress's fiancé is actually obsessed with the very person responsible for bullying her is undoubtedly explosive news. As the situation unfolded, countless speculations began to swirl. One of these theories has caught the attention of netizens. Am I the only one who thinks Xiangnuan deliberately leaked the details of the bullying incident to the media? Did she realize long ago that her fiancé had feelings for Ruxia? And was she just trying to get back at him? Xiangnuan's fiancé is her agent, right? According to what she said before, she and her fiancé have been together since high school. But back then, her fiancé had already fallen for Ruxia. I think there's more to this story. Who knows who was bullying whom back then? Let me tell you, Ruxia and Xiangnuan used to be classmates. Back in high school, they both had a crush on Xiao Mo. Ever since then, their relationship has been tense. Think about it, truly think about it. The hostility in netizen speculations toward me began to grow, and with the exposure of Xiao Mo's Weibo, the bullying incident from back then suddenly took a turn. Those who were involved in the bullying incident back then and who were later exposed and subjected to online abuse by netizens are now using public opinion to spread rumors about me. They say I meddled in their relationship back in high school, and that the so-called bullying incident was actually a rumor I spread about them to generate buzz and build up my persona. The accusations and angry shouts nearly crushed me. But right now, I don't have the strength or energy to set the record straight. How did it come to this? As I looked at the posts on Xiao Mo's secret account that netizens had dug up, I desperately wanted to find any clue in them to prove that he wasn't the one behind it. But it was all in vain. Having known him for 11 years, I know Xiao Mo's tone of voice all too well. Every single conversation he posted on social media from his high school days with Ruxia serves as proof of his identity. How ridiculous. He said he felt that Ruxia was different from all the other girls he knew. He said she was bold yet sensitive, and outspoken yet delicate. Every word he spoke, every syllable, was filled with passionate love for Ruxia. He remembered every glance she gave him, every expression on her face, and every smile she gave him with crystal clear clarity. He said the biggest regret of his life was turning down Ruxia's confession. Yet he resolutely refused to mention who, after he rejected her confession, had cornered him in the alley in a fit of rage, or who, unable to stand Ruxia's behavior, had kindly called the police on his behalf. And who was it who offended Ruxia on his behalf, bearing the brunt of her anger for 2 whole years? So, all those 11 years he spent by her side were simply to atone for Ruxia. It turns out that all my pain, all my emotions, and all my sacrifices over the years have been nothing but a complete farce. The day before Xiao Mo took his own life, he posted his final Weibo message from his secondary account. I would give my life to avenge you. If I could do it all over again, I would walk toward you without hesitation. If I could do it all over again, I wouldn't want to be just a spectator in your little 2-person show. I never imagined that when I opened my eyes again, I would find myself back in my high school classroom. Seeing this familiar scene before me, my mind went completely blank for a moment. It wasn't until I spotted the art school application form tucked under my arm that I finally snapped back to reality, my eyes brimming with delight. I can't believe I've been reborn. Unfortunately, this joy didn't last long before it was interrupted by the commotion at the podium. Xiao Mo. Ruxia, have taken a liking to you. So, what do you say? Want to be my boyfriend? Ruxia's voice was just as it had been in her past life, brimming with confidence and pride. That beautiful, radiant little face wore a smile that said she was certain of victory. Xiao Mo, standing before her, had his path blocked by the people she'd brought with her. His youthful yet undeniably handsome face was almost completely expressionless at that moment, as if everything around him had nothing to do with him, but I was the only one who could see clearly that his ears were almost red enough to bleed. As I watched this unfold, a chill crept into my eyes. I imagine he must be very happy right now. After all, his Weibo from his past life clearly shows that this was the day he first fell for Ruxia. If you like each other, why not be together? A hint of sarcasm played on the corners of my mouth. Was it because I was shy? Or because I was timid? Since that's the case, I don't mind giving him a hand. At that moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on the two of them, watching the commotion unfold. No one noticed, but I, who had been sitting in my seat, stood up at that moment, waving my book, and shouted loudly at the two people at the podium, Xiao Mo. What are you standing there for? Ruxia, a girl has actually confessed her feelings to you. That's such a huge honor. You're not seriously going to turn down our school's most beautiful girl, are you? Say yes to her. Say yes to her. Get together. Get together. My sudden outburst instantly drew everyone's attention, and seeing someone setting the tone, all the students in the classroom began to get excited. The school beauty and the top student are a perfect match. Exactly. They're a perfect match made for each other. Get together. Get together. Seeing me take the lead in setting her up, Ruxia gave me a surprised look. It seemed she hadn't expected Masumyeon she'd never had anything to do with to help her out like that. But as the jeers grew louder, Ruxia stopped pressing the issue and instead lifted her chin at Xiao Mo with a smug look. I looked around the classroom with satisfaction as the collective cheering grew louder and louder. I wonder if, after all I've done to build such a strong foundation for him in this life, he'll end up with Ruxia. For a fleeting moment, I felt as though Xiao Mo's gaze had lingered on me for an instant from the stage. In his indifferent eyes, there seemed to be a fleeting glimpse of bewilderment and panic that he couldn't quite comprehend. Or maybe I'm just seeing things, seeing that Xiao Mo was taking his time to answer. The smug look on Ruxia's face began to fade. A threatening look gradually crept into her eyes as she looked at Xiao Mo. And just as she was about to say something, Xiao Mo spoke up. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to date you. You're pretty, but I don't like you. Those two sentences were almost exactly the same as in my past life. Yet for some reason I felt not a shred of regret. Instead, I felt a sense of detachment, a desire to cut ties with her immediately. Ruxia's expression changed instantly. Seeing how resolute Xiao Mo was, a shadow of anger flashed across her eyes, and she threatened him, saying, Are you sure you want to reject my confession in front of all these people? Xiao Mo, I'm giving you one more chance. You'd better think it over carefully. No, I'm sure I don't want to get involved in a relationship too early. It would interfere with my studies. With that, Xiao Mo pushed past the classmates who had surrounded them in a tight circle and returned to his seat. Fine, Xiao Mo. No one has ever dared to refuse me. You've got some nerve. Ruxia practically shouted these words at Xiao Mo's back, gritting her teeth, then stormed out of the classroom with a grim expression. Everything unfolded exactly as it had in my past life. What shocked me was that even though I'd been rooting for Xiao Mo so wholeheartedly in this life, he still turned Ruxia down. Even though I was overjoyed inside, I still chose to refuse. What is this? Self-torture. I sneered inwardly a few times, and then I saw that Xiao Mo had already stepped down from the podium and was about to return to his seat. I instinctively looked down to avoid making eye contact with him. After all, I never wanted to have anything to do with him again, nor did I want to endure over a year of bullying at school because of him. But as the old saying goes, Sometimes what you fear most is exactly what happened. Xiao Mo actually stopped right in front of my desk. Why are you doing this? At that moment, Xiao Mo stood in front of my desk and spoke. But for some reason, I always felt that this accusatory remark carried a hint of hurt and anger. I froze for a moment, instinctively looking up to meet his eyes. For a fleeting instant, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about Xiao Mo right then. But as soon as I saw the unflinching look in his eyes, I completely forgot about what I'd been thinking just a moment ago. What? I raised an eyebrow at him, then said with a sudden realization. Oh, you mean the cheering earlier. I don't mean anything by it. I just think you two make a great couple. Come on. We're all classmates. We were just messing around. You wouldn't get upset over something like that, would you? All I can say is, having spent many years in the entertainment industry in my past life, I know a thing or two about being sarcastic. Xiao Mo pursed his lips, seemingly unwilling to argue with me, and returned to his seat without saying a word. Just then, the bell rang. For the entire class, I felt as though I could sense a faint, lingering gaze on my back, one that felt as though it might burn right through me. But Ruxia never returned to the classroom. I knew full well what lay in store for Xiao Mo, and right now, I was more than happy to see it happen. It took me the whole morning to get used to the freshman curriculum. After school, I carefully placed the application form to become an art exam candidate into a folder and stuffed it into my backpack. In my previous life, I worked tirelessly in the entertainment industry for 8 years and was eventually honored to be crowned Best Actress. But even so, I still have a nagging worry. I didn't go to art school. In my past life, Ruxia deliberately tore up my application form the day before I was due to submit it, leaving me unable to transfer into the arts exam class. Then, just the day before I had finally found a way to take the arts entrance exam, he beat me half to death and locked me on the school rooftop. In my previous life, lacking a professional network and systematic training, I took quite a few detours. So, as soon as I realized I had been reborn, the first thought that crossed my mind was to make the most of the second chance. I got into the film school I'd always dreamed of attending. As for Xiao Mo and Ruxia in this lifetime, I couldn't care less. Didn't Xiao Mo fall in love with Ruxia at first sight? Doesn't he regret not being with her back then? Since he's so eager to court disaster, I'm not going to rob him and Ruxia of the chance to get close like I did in my last life. Let him just enjoy Ruxia's deep love for him. With that thought in mind, I slung my backpack over my shoulder and walked out of school. As I walked past the alley next to the school, I heard familiar shouts of abuse and muffled groans of pain coming from inside, and I couldn't help but stop in my tracks. With my backpack on my back, I peered inside and saw Ruxia, flanked by her gang of thugs, standing over Xiao Mo, who was lying on the ground, looking utterly bedraggled. No guy I've ever set my sights on has ever been so rude as to turn down my confession. Xiao Mo, who do you think you are? You're nothing but a poor student. It's your good fortune that I've taken a liking to you. Not only did you refuse, but you had the nerve to turn me down in front of the whole class. You're clearly dragging my reputation through the mud. Ruxia had a cigarette hanging from her mouth. Her roguish demeanor stood in stark contrast to her harmless-looking face. She stood with one foot on Xiao Mo, as if she were stepping on a dog, looking down at him from above. But I could tell that the look she gave Xiao Mo still held a strong sense of conquest. After all, for someone like Ruxia, things that come easily are worthless. Only what she can never truly possess keeps her on the edge of her seat. Sure enough, when it comes to how twisted they are, these two are practically neck and neck. They're a perfect match. In a past life, unable to stand watching Ruxia bully Xiao Mo, I happened to be passing through this alley and, without a moment's hesitation, pulled out my phone and called the police. He stepped forward again and stood in front of Xiao Mo. After helping him get rid of Ruxia, I thoughtfully took him to the hospital. Since I couldn't get in touch with his mother, I stayed with him all night at the hospital. I admit that back then, my help for Xiao Mo was indeed motivated by my feelings for him. But aside from those feelings, it was mostly out of admiration. It's no secret at our school that Xiao Mo comes from a low-income family. Xiao Mo's father passed away when he was very young, leaving his mother to manage everything on her own. Xiao Mo ranked first in the city on his high school entrance exam, although he had clearly been accepted into a top-tier high school in the city. He chose our high school instead because of the tuition costs. It was simply because the principal had promised him that if he agreed to come here, not only would his tuition for all 3 years of high school be fully waived, but the school would also provide him with an additional monthly stipend of 2,000 yuan. If you're admitted to a top-tier university in 3 years, the school will also offer a scholarship. Since starting school, Xiao Mo has consistently ranked first in the class, and he has a striking yet aloof appearance. Xiao Mo quickly became a household name at the school, from a poor family yet unwavering in his resolve, excelling academically yet humble and unassuming. What young woman wouldn't be drawn to a young man like that during her teenage years? But that would only appeal to my past self. But whether in his past life or this one, Xiao Mo is not worthy of being saved. I looked away, pretended I hadn't seen anything, and turned to leave. But as soon as he took a step, he heard Xiao Mo's pitiful cry for help coming from behind him. "Xiong, help me." I didn't catch what Xiao Mo said, so I furrowed my brow and ran as fast as I could. It was as if I had never passed by there. Go home, close the door, then grab a handful of glutinous rice and throw it all over yourself. What a bummer. To avoid any complications down the road, early the next morning, I submitted my application to become an art student to the teacher in charge of the school's arts program, Teacher Chen, who was in charge of collecting the registration forms, looked at the form I handed her and said with a look of satisfaction, "Xiang Wan, I'm so glad you didn't choose to let your talent go to waste. I believe you will be the one to set a new standard for success in the arts college entrance exams. Ms. Chen has high expectations for me." It was she who first recognized my talent for acting and encouraged me to pursue formal training in this field. In a past life, she couldn't bear to see my talent go to waste, so she went out of her way to pull strings on my behalf, securing me a spot in the arts entrance exams. Unfortunately, in the end, I let her down. "Teacher, I won't let you down. I'm definitely going to get into film school." My voice was firm as I gave Mr. Chen my assurance. In this life, I will never let her down again. When I got back to class, morning study hall had already begun. Xiao Mo wasn't at his desk, and for some reason, the homeroom teacher hadn't arrived yet. The classroom was in an uproar. I took out my textbook to quiet the class, then got ready to lead the morning reading session. But before I could even reach the podium, my phone vibrated. I tapped on it and saw that it was a message from my homeroom teacher, asking me to come to the principal's office. I was a bit puzzled about what was going on, but the moment I walked into the principal's office and saw that familiar scene before me, everything went black. In the office, Xiao Mo's mother stood with her hands on her hips, insisting that the principal explain the situation. Ru Xiao's parents hadn't come. Instead, it was her father's secretary, who was now frowning, unsure of how to deal with the feisty woman standing before him. Ru Xia stood to one side. Her harmless face bore no trace of the arrogance she displayed the day before when she'd lectured Xiao Mo. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she looked just like a frightened little deer. This was her usual disguise. As for Xiao Mo, his handsome face was now covered in scars, and his left arm was bandaged, looked as bedraggled as could be. But even so, I still found that the injuries Xiao Mo sustained in this life were far more severe than in the last. At least all that fuss I made yesterday wasn't for nothing. As if sensing my gaze, Xiao Mo immediately looked over at me. Perhaps it was just my imagination, but I always felt that the moment he looked at me, his eyes seemed to light up, with a hint of anticipation in them. That uneasy feeling crept up on me again, but now wasn't the time to dwell on it. "Teacher, you called me." When she saw me coming, the homeroom teacher looked as if she'd seen a savior. My right eyelid twitched involuntarily, and a sense of foreboding crept over me. Sure enough, the very next second, my homeroom teacher pulled me aside and asked the question that made my vision go black. "Xiang Wan, Xiao Mo said he saw you walking past the alley where he was beaten last night. Did you see who beat up Xiao Mo last night? Is this Ru Xia?" the one Xiao Emo identified. I felt a bit dazed, but mostly just incredulous, because everything before him was almost exactly the same as what had happened in his past life. In a past life, I called the police on Xiao Mo's behalf, preventing Ru Xia and the others from continuing their abuse of him. The next day, Xiao Mo's mother stormed into the school with Xiao Mo and the medical report from the hospital, determined to make Ru Xia, who had beaten Xiao Mo, pay for what she had done. To that end, they even came to me, a well-meaning witness, hoping I could identify on the spot exactly who had beaten Xiao Mo last night. In my past life, I was foolish. Even though I knew I had already offended Ru Xia, I still pointed the finger at her and her group right then and there, all for Xiao Mo's sake, and for the sake of so-called justice. But who would have thought that Xiao Mo's mother would ultimately choose to settle with Ru Xia for 100,000 yuan? Ru Xia then turned her anger on me, directing all the fury she had originally directed at Xiao Mo toward me instead. I had thought none of this would happen again today. After all, I was certain that, in the dim light last night, with Xiao Mo beaten into a daze, there was no way he could have recognized me as the person standing at the entrance to the alley. But what on earth is going on now? I furrowed my brow slightly. Something about the whole situation just didn't feel right. But the circumstances left me no time to dwell on it. Xiao Mo's mother, desperate to protect her son, rushed over, grabbed my hand, and urged me, saying, "Sweetheart, I can tell right away that you're a good student, unlike that little slut who's trying to turn the tables on me. Tell Auntie, did you see this little slut beating up my son in the alley?" My arm was being yanked so hard it hurt, and as I looked at the woman standing before me with such urgency, a wave of disgust washed over me. Even back then, I didn't like Xiao Mo's mom. She had sky-high expectations, and even after I'd made a name for myself in the entertainment industry, she still thought I wasn't good enough for her son. After Xiao Mo committed suicide, she went so far as to make the absurd claim that I was responsible for his son's death. I still remember how, in my past life, she took a huge sum of money from my family and then, right in front of the cameras, had the nerve to fabricate a story about me forcing Xiao Mo to marry her and driving Ru Xia to her death. Absolutely shameless. At that thought, my expression turned cold. Under her expectant gaze, I forcefully shook off her hand and said to her slowly, "Auntie, I didn't see it." I kept a calm expression as I made up a lie. I walk past that alley every day after school, and I did hear noises coming from it last night, but I didn't go in, so I have no idea what actually happened in that alley. My expression was completely calm. My strong mental fortitude and the superb acting skills I had honed over many years made it impossible for anyone to detect any signs of deception. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of Xiao Mo, who was sitting on a bench nearby, covered in bruises. He just stared at me with wide eyes, as if he hadn't expected me to give that answer at all. From the moment I walked in, Xiao Mo's gaze never left me. It wasn't until I said those words that the look in his eyes gradually shifted from shock to the utter devastation he now felt. As if something were slowly crumbling away, I suddenly realized something. But before I could even process my shock, Xiao Mo's mother pointed at me and started shouting excitedly, "No way. You must have been bribed by that little slut. My son clearly saw you walking down that alley last night. There's no way you didn't see him." The homeroom teacher looked at me and frowned. "Xiang Wan, are you sure you didn't see anything? This is a very serious matter. Why don't you think about it again? Maybe you saw it but just didn't remember." "That's right, Xiang Wan. Many teachers at school have mentioned your name to me. They all trust your character and know you're not the kind of student who would lie. So, whatever you heard or saw last night, please tell us exactly what happened. There will be a teacher standing behind you to ensure justice is served." The principal and the teacher were singing from the same hymn sheet. Deep down, they both had a clear answer regarding this matter. It's just that words alone aren't enough. And since the security cameras in that alley are old and out of order, I'm hoping someone will come forward as a witness. It's just a shame I don't want to. I withdrew my gaze and said slowly, "Teacher, I promise I'm not lying. I really didn't see anything last night. I did hear noises coming from the alley, but it was already very late. It's not safe for a girl like me to be out walking at night. So there's no way I would have gone into the alley alone to check it out. I'd really like to help Xiao Mo, but I can't just make things up and falsely accuse Ruxia. Besides, if a girl like Xiao were falsely accused, how would she manage to get by at school? I forced myself to stay detached despite feeling sick to my stomach. I hadn't intended to speak up for Ruxia, but the thought that doing so would annoy Xiao Mo's mother made me feel a lot better. I insisted that I hadn't seen anything last night. My homeroom teacher and the principal questioned me repeatedly, trying to catch me in a lie by looking for any telltale signs on my face. But in the end, they couldn't find any evidence against me and had no choice but to let me go home. Even as I walked out of the principal's office, Xiao Mo kept staring at me without blinking. His expression deeply hurt. The matter eventually fizzled out. Apparently, since there were no eyewitnesses, Ruxia's father's assistant flatly insisted that Xiao Mo had inflicted the injuries on himself and was trying to pin them on Ruxia. To silence the school, Ruxia's family offered to pay for the replacement of all surveillance cameras at the school and in the surrounding area, guaranteeing that incidents where students are beaten but the perpetrators cannot be identified would never happen again. Ruxia's dad was so sincere that, after all he did, the school couldn't say a word against it. After making a scene a few times, Xiao Mo's mother saw that it was getting her nowhere, so she had no choice but to swallow her pride. After all, Xiao Mo is, quite simply, a student receiving financial aid from the school. Who knows if her continued outbursts might end up having some negative impact on him. The news that the top student had been beaten was the talk of the school, while Xiao Mo has been home on leave these past few days. I've actually been in quite a good mood not seeing him around. The only time I felt a bit annoyed was when I received a friend request from Xiao Mo one day, but I was only stunned for a moment before I immediately declined the request and blocked him, because I know that Xiao Mo has also been reborn. I'm absolutely certain that Xiao Mo couldn't have seen me that night. So logically speaking, the incident where the teacher asked me to testify in the principal's office that day shouldn't have happened in the first place. But it happened anyway. So when Xiao Mo blocked my path at the entrance to my apartment complex, I wasn't the least bit surprised. Toward the warmth, the wounds on Xiao Mo's face hadn't fully healed yet, but they did nothing to detract from his good looks. If anything, they added a touch of fragile vulnerability to his appearance. Toward the warmth, his eyes were slightly red, and a mist of tears had gathered in his usually cold gaze. His voice hoarse. He asked me, "Why? You've been reborn too, haven't you?" Nuan. Seeing him like that, I couldn't help but clench my fists. I have to admit that when it comes to acting skills, Xiao Mo is probably more accomplished than I am. What is he doing? Xia clearly loved her so much that he was willing to kill himself for her. Heaven gave him a second chance at life and the opportunity to win her back. So why does he have to show up right in front of me and put on this boring one-man show? Xiao Mo took a step toward me. I instinctively furrowed my brow slightly and took a step back. Excuse me, Xiao Mo, are we that close? We aren't really close. In my previous life, Xiao Mo was aloof, quiet, and composed. We sat in the front and back seats for over a year, yet we never exchanged a single word. If I hadn't spoken up that time, we might never have crossed paths during our 3 years of high school. In my past life, I made a mistake, but in this life, it's time to set things right. Nuan. Xiao Mo opened his mouth. His tear-filled eyes grew even redder. He tremblingly reached out toward me, trying to grab my sleeve, but I dodged him without a trace of hesitation. Xiao Mo, if you don't need me for anything else, I'll be heading out now. Also, please don't call me Nuan anymore. Xiao Mo, you're overstepping your bounds. As soon as the words left his mouth, Xiao Mo froze in his tracks. Even though it was summer, his face had turned as white as a sheet. I turned away without a second thought. But then I heard his breathing quicken, and suddenly he raised his voice at me. Why aren't you saving me anymore? Nuan, are you done with me? The only thing that answered him was my receding figure. Time flies. Before we know it, our freshman year is coming to an end. After that incident, Ruxia seemed to have completely broken ties with Xiao Mo. The bullying that Ruxia had instigated in her previous life had now successfully been turned against Xiao Mo in this one. All the surveillance cameras at the school have been replaced with new ones. And the entire school and its surrounding area are now fully covered by surveillance. With no blind spots in the surveillance system, Ruxia and the others have been keeping a much lower profile lately, unable to run amok as they used to. They naturally took out all their pent-up frustration on Xiao Mo. I've seen it happen more than once. During the long break, Ruxia would drag Xiao Mo into the girls' restroom with her entourage in tow. They threw wet toilet paper at Xiao Mo, dumped a bag full of feces on his head, and pressed a toilet mop against his face. In my past life, I endured 2 years of bullying like this, and all of this should have had nothing to do with me. Whenever I went to the restroom and saw Xiao Mo being bullied, I would ignore the hopeful yet pitiful look he gave me. I don't understand what he's expecting. Does he want me to step forward and stand in front of him, just like I did in my past life? Shouldn't he be happy? After all, I gave him and the one person I truly loved a chance to be intimate. Even though Mingming loved Xia to pieces, she didn't know why she turned down his confession. Could it be that he actually enjoys this feeling of loving someone but never being able to have them? Xiao Mo really is a pain in the neck. I shook my hands, didn't even glance at him, and turned to walk away without a second thought. When my sophomore year began, I finally got into the art exam prep class that I hadn't been able to join in my previous life. Thanks to my acting experience from a previous life, I felt right at home in the performing arts class. And many teachers were delighted to praise me as a natural-born talent for acting. Just like in his previous life, Xiao Mo chose the liberal arts track and ended up in the same class as Ruxia. The art exam prep class and the humanities class weren't in the same building. And since I made a point of going to the humanities building as little as possible on weekdays, more than half the semester had passed, and Xiao Mo and I still hadn't run into each other again. But many times, while I was practicing in the rehearsal room, I could feel a loving gaze directed at me from outside the window, but I've never actually gone out of my way to look for it. Before long, it was time for the Sophomore Arts Festival, as the school's performing arts class preparing for college entrance exams. We were tasked with putting on high-quality performances. Just like last year, the teachers decided to put on a play, and in this play, the sole female lead is none other than Majest, as everyone expected. To be honest, I don't really want to be in this play, because I remember clearly that in Xiao Mo's Weibo from his past life, it was stated quite explicitly that what made him truly fall in love with Ruxia was seeing her dancing gracefully on stage in a white dress during the high school sophomore arts festival. She danced and leapt like a white butterfly. Her petite, girlish figure leapt right into his heart, sending ripples across the still waters of his soul. Back then, Xiao Mo was completely captivated by the beautiful Ruxia on stage. Yet he never once remembered Meth, poor soul, who was bullied by Ruxia simply because of him. Xiao Mo once said that I was the hero who saved him, but how could he possibly know that, as he watched Ruxia fall in love on stage? If one who had been pushed into a corner and tormented by Ruxia until I was covered in bruises felt nothing but envy and jealousy watching her dance so gracefully on stage. If it weren't for Ruxia, I think I would have had a chance to take the stage myself. But now, the opportunity has arrived. Not everyone gets a second chance. Why should I give up the opportunity I've always dreamed of just because of a mistake I made in the past? Heaven has been kind enough to let me be reborn with memories of my past life. It wasn't meant for me to just give up on myself and hide my true potential. I want to make up for the regrets of my past life. I want to shine. I am destined to walk a path even more glorious than the one I took in my previous life. The day of the performance arrived all too soon. I got a copy of the program in advance, and sure enough, just like in my past life, Ruxia was participating in this performance. Before our show, I was darting around backstage in a red dress. I look beautiful today. As she applied her makeup, she looked at herself in the mirror. Her youthful face was still innocent, but her eyes radiated a confidence she had never possessed before. That red dress was bold and flamboyant, and it was the perfect finishing touch for the confident and vibrant person I am today. Maybe it was because my red dress was so eye-catching, but while I was waiting backstage, quite a few people gave me admiring glances. But there was one exception. Hey, isn't that Xiang Wan? It's been a long time. Ru Xiao walked up to me wearing a white dress. With her innocent face and that white dress, she looked just like a pure white jasmine flower today. If you ignore her sarcastic tone. That's nice. That red dress really looks great on you. Ru Xiao circled around me, sizing me up from head to toe. Although her words were meant as a compliment, her tone and that jealous look on her face gave no hint of any praise whatsoever. Is something wrong? If not, I need to get ready to go on stage. I didn't want to waste my breath on Ru Xia. After all, she's like a dog, she might bite anyone who happens to walk by. I turned to leave, but she blocked my path once again. She looked me up and down, then gave me a threatening look and ordered, "Change this dress for me." What? Didn't you get it? The backstage area was bustling with people. Ru Xia seemed afraid that someone might notice her threatening me, so she grabbed my arm with both hands, her sharp nails digging into my flesh, and hissed at me, "Xiang Nuan, how come I never noticed before just how eye-catching you are? I won't let anyone steal my thunder today. I'm not one for small talk. I'm warning you, take off your skirt. Otherwise, you know what will happen." With that, she took a step back and gave me a kind smile, but as she turned away, her eyes flashed with a clear threat. I watched her walk away menacingly, and by the time I realized what was happening, my palms were drenched in cold sweat. The spot on her arm where she had been scratched was now throbbing slightly, but none of that matters. I'm definitely wearing this red dress. Not only will I wear it on stage, but I'm also going to give a flawless performance. Even if Ru Xiao were to set her sights on me now, or bully me just like she did in my past life. So what? I am no longer the Xiang Nuan I was in my past life. Nothing can kill me. If anything, it only makes me stronger. I heard the announcer's voice from the stage. The teacher was calling me to get ready to go on stage. I turned around, and every step I took onto the stage was exceptionally steady. The moment the spotlight fell on me, it felt as if I had been transported back to a past life, that same thrill of holding the Best Actress award in my hands. I stood in the center of the stage, closed my eyes, and as soon as I opened them, I delivered my lines. I hate that saintly look on your face. I don't love you. I don't want to hear you pouring out your love in my ear every day, and I certainly won't give you that right just because I took your money. Do you understand? I'm leaving now. Heaven will reward those who are brave, strong, and compassionate. There were times when I wanted to give up, but he left a lingering ache somewhere inside me, the thought that he would always be there, causing that dull ache, and that my view of everything would lose all its luster because of that tiny bit of pine. It was enough to keep me going. I was scared. As I finished my long monologue and turned to exit the stage, the previously quiet audience erupted in thunderous cheers and applause. At that moment, it felt as though something had filled the void in my heart. In that moment when I bowed along with everyone else, hearing the thunderous applause from the audience, I felt truly happy for the first time since my rebirth. Just as I turned to leave the stage, I caught a glimpse of Xiao Emo sitting in the corner. He stared at me on stage with wide, unblinking eyes. His gaze held a mix of awe, nostalgia, and a suffocating depth of remorse and love. I pretended not to hear and quickly left the stage. As he was leaving the stage, Ru Xia, who was waiting backstage, gave him a hard shove on the shoulder. The look in her eyes was filled with such jealousy and hatred that it seemed as if she might burst into flames. But I completely ignored him and walked straight toward Mr. Chen, who was holding a bouquet of flowers. Ms. Chen excitedly pressed a bouquet of flowers into my arms. Her eyes were red with emotion as she said to me, "Toward the light. The future looks bright." Teacher Chen's choked voice brought tears to my eyes. I knew that, for her, nothing made her prouder than seeing the students she believed in shine on stage. In my past life, I let her down. But in this life, I will take her hopes and dreams with me as I soar to new heights in the entertainment industry. Carrying the flowers, I headed back to the lounge the school had prepared for us. As soon as I reached the door, I saw someone I really didn't want to see. Nuan Nuan. Xiao Emo was standing against the wall, holding a bouquet of roses. When he saw me, his eyes lit up, and he strode toward me. "Nuan Nuan, You look absolutely stunning today. He handed me the flowers, his eyes filled with hope. As if he believed that if I accepted them, I would be able to forgive him for the past. Looking at him, at the flowers in his hands, and at the look of anticipation in his eyes, the scene seemed incredibly familiar to me. No matter how I looked at it, it was just like in a past life. When he confessed his feelings to me, his face, which had gradually matured, was flushed with a faint blush, and the fingers holding out the rose to me were still trembling slightly. He was so shy that he didn't even dare to look me in the eye. He turned his head slightly and asked if I would go out with him. At that time, my heart was filled with sweetness, and I believed that the boy standing before me, one who had once made my heart flutter, must have had feelings for me. But now that I know the truth, I'm really curious. When Xiao Mo confessed his feelings to me back then, who was he actually thinking of? Perhaps he mistook me for Ruxia, and poured all the kindness he wanted to show Ruxia onto me instead. Perhaps that's still the case today. At that thought, my stomach churned involuntarily. I ignored the rose Xiao Mo held out to me, walked past him, and turned to open the door to the lounge. This is the actor's dressing room. Unauthorized personnel. Please leave immediately. My first premiere was a huge success. Many of my classmates still remember the day I stood on stage in a red dress, completely immersed in my role as I recited my lines. A photo of me on stage was even posted on the school's confessions wall, where it stayed up every day, 5 days a week. All of this is different from how it was in the past life. After all, at this time in the past life, the person everyone was praising like this was still Ruxia. In her previous life, Ruxia, dressed in a white gown, became the idealized love of countless hearts. But for some reason, she must have had a bad day this time. She actually messed up her performance on stage. Forget about being the class sweetheart. She almost became the laughingstock of her classmates. Still, no one actually dared to make fun of her. Now that I was the one in the spotlight, Ruxia naturally couldn't let it go. I didn't think she'd come after me, so I've been going to and from school in a group these past few days. I am not about to be caught alone. But even with all that caution, accidents still happen. Ruxia hired someone to lure me out of the classroom. When they dragged me into the bathroom, my mind went blank for a moment, even though I had long since moved past the painful memories of bullying from my past life. I was still completely helpless in the face of their bullying once again. All I could do was shield my head with all my might while they punched and kicked me, poured water from a mop bucket over me, and dumped tissues from the bathroom trash can on my head. They laughed as they watched me, looking as bedraggled as a drowned rat. It wasn't until Ruxia pulled a small knife from her pocket that I snapped out of my daze, only to hear her say through gritted teeth, "Xiang Nuan, do you think I'm afraid to do anything to you? Tell me," she said, "if I were to disfigure your face, would you still be able to become an Academy Award-winning actress like you did in your past life?" When I heard her say that, my eyes widened almost instantly, and I looked at Ruxia with utter shock. Ruxia has actually been reborn too. It seemed that my look of utter astonishment amused her. Ruxia snorted derisively. "Didn't see that coming, did you, Hollywood superstar? I've been reborn too. In your past life, you let your fans drive me to my death. In this life, you still want to dream of becoming Best Actress. I'm telling you, there's no way." As she spoke, she raised her hand and slapped me hard across the face. "You ruined everything for me in my past life. In this life, I'll make sure you don't have it easy. You want to break into showbiz like you did in your past life and expose me again? I'll never give you that chance." Ruxia laughed heartily, looking almost frenzied. She was holding that small knife in her hand and slowly closing in on me. At that moment, I admit I panicked. In my mind, I keep reliving the day before my art school entrance exam in my previous life, when she slashed my arm, stripped me naked, and locked me on the rooftop in the biting cold. I nearly froze to death. I pounded on the rooftop door in despair and helplessness, just as I am doing now, screaming for help in utter desperation. But it was recess, and this restroom was in a remote spot. There was no way anyone would come here. I don't know if it was shock or a daze, but I actually heard footsteps outside the door that sounded all too familiar. Just as in my past life, when I was freezing to the point of losing consciousness. I seemed to hear footsteps outside the door in a daze. The footsteps outside gradually blended with the footsteps in my memory. And in that moment, I felt as though I had finally understood something. But I don't have time to think about that right now. Rochelle lunged at me with her knife, and I dodged to the side with every ounce of strength I had, then kicked her away. For some reason, the two aides who had been following Rochelle had long since been sent away by her. And now the restroom was empty except for the two of us. Rochelle was kicked in the stomach and fell to the ground in agony. I seized the opportunity to try to grab her dagger, but she anticipated my move and slashed my arm. Ah! I let out a scream. Blood pooled on the floor, and I collapsed to the ground, clutching my severed arm. Seeing me like this, Rochelle burst out laughing. She kicked me hard in the stomach, spewing obscenities, but she seemed to take a perverse interest in it. She suddenly swung the knife in her hand and, in no time at all, slashed all my clothes to shreds. Then she pulled out her cell phone. I don't think it's fun at all to scratch your face. After all, with today's advanced cosmetic procedures, who knows if it can be fixed later? I might as well take some nude photos of you from now on. If you dare set foot in the entertainment industry, I'll post all these photos online so your fans can get a good look at just how slutty you really are. Rochelle burst out laughing and pointed her phone at my bedraggled appearance. But unfortunately, she was never going to get her wish. Before she could even press the shutter button, the bathroom door was kicked open. Right after that, the homeroom teacher rushed in with the principal and caught sight of me, covered in bruises and being held down by Rochelle, looking utterly helpless. According to classmates who were there at the time, I was lying on the ground covered in blood. And when Mr. Chen saw me, he nearly fainted. The principal pulled Rochelle away almost immediately and called an ambulance to take me to the hospital. Ignoring his superior's attempts to stop him, Mr. Chen called the police on the spot, and Rochelle was taken to the police station. It was a good thing I'd warned my desk partner beforehand. If I went out alone and hadn't returned within half an hour, she was to take our homeroom teacher to the restroom where Rochelle often bullied Xiaomo to rescue me. This time, many people witnessed Rochelle committing the crime with their own eyes, and police forensic analysis confirmed that Rochelle's fingerprints were indeed on the knife. As soon as my parents heard what had happened to me, they rushed to the hospital. When they saw me covered in bruises, they immediately started hounding me for answers. They will inevitably force the school to expel Rochelle, but I know that Rochelle can't leave. Her wealthy father will likely end up using money to get her out of trouble, just as he always has. And since she's not yet an adult, she won't face any real consequences. It was precisely because Rochelle knew this that she was so brazen. However, that's about it. After all, I've become famous. A video of my performance in the play at that gala was posted online by someone, and my compelling acting instantly sparked a flurry of discussion among netizens. Hardly anyone can believe that such a mature and profound performance could really come from a 17-year-old girl. I received an offer for a role in an art house film while I was in the hospital, and I knew the director who was making the film. In my previous life, I won the Best Actress award by playing the lead female role in one of the movies he directed. I also remember this art house film. In a previous life, it won 3 international awards, and the actors who starred in it all went on to great success after its release. Rochelle probably never imagined that, despite being so afraid of me so much so that she was willing to go to extreme lengths to destroy me and stop me from entering the entertainment industry, it would all end up being a complete waste of effort. In this life, I entered this circle even earlier than in my previous life. I accepted the offer to be in the movie, took a leave of absence from school after being discharged from the hospital, and threw myself into the film crew. After the film was released, I quickly established myself in the entertainment industry thanks to my solid acting skills. Rochelle was completely panicked. In an attempt to ruin me, she hired online trolls to spread rumors about me and paid a large number of haters to post false claims about me online. But little did she know that this was exactly the moment I had been waiting for. As the online abuse against me grew increasingly intense, I released all the audio recordings from the day she bullied me, mounting a brilliant counterattack. I never thought I'd be lucky enough to escape Rochelle's bullying in this lifetime. I I've said before that Rusia is like a mad dog by the roadside even if someone just walks by. She might bite them. So, every day since I was reborn, I've kept a voice recorder in my pocket or kept the voice memo app on my phone open at all times. I am always aware that sometimes, it is very likely that the final straw is what breaks the camel's back. Just as in her past life, Rusia was subjected to online harassment, and many students she had once hurt spoke out online, revealing what she had done to them, and among them was Xiao Mo. I recognized that account. It was Xiao Mo's alternate account from his previous life. Now there is no trace of Rusia left in this account. Instead, it's filled with his guilt toward me. He said he regretted hurting me back then, making me the butt of everyone's jokes at a time that should have been the happiest of my life. He said he only realized belatedly that the person he had always loved was me. He said that seeing me keep my distance from him time and again, no longer standing up for him as I had in our past life, broke his heart. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I can now say with certainty that Xiao Mo really is sick. Once, when I loved him with all my heart and soul, he had someone else on his mind. But now that I've shut him out completely, he's acting like a dog, barking "I love you" at the top of his lungs. An emotion that could be called sick claims to be deep, but in reality, it's nothing but a pile of sludge. Stinky, disgusting, bad luck. Rusia was eventually sent to prison. By the time I exposed all of this, she was already over 18. On top of that, her family's business went bankrupt after being affected by online harassment, and the Rusia of today no longer has the confidence or resources she once did. Even if she were to live her life over again, she would still have to pay the price for what she had done. The next time I saw Xiao Mo was after the art exams were over, when I had returned to school to focus on my academic studies. Perhaps afraid that I would avoid him again, Xiao Mo waited right at the classroom door. But this time, I didn't walk around him. Nuan. Look, I've done everything in my power to make Rusia pay for what she did. Can you forgive me? Xiao Mo held up his post exposing Rusia's bullying as if to take credit for it. With over 200,000 likes and comments, he had completely exposed himself online as a victim. But I didn't watch it. I stared at Xiao Mo for a long time, then suddenly smiled with a sense of relief and asked him, in my past life, the night before the art exam, when Rusia and the others locked me on the rooftop, you were standing behind the door, weren't you? What? Xiao Mo didn't seem to expect me to ask that question. For a moment, a flicker of panic crossed his eyes. It wasn't just that night, there was also that important audition I missed because I overslept. You slipped a good dose of sleeping pills into that glass of water you gave me, didn't you? Including that day when Rusia locked me in the bathroom and tried to disfigure me. You were standing outside the bathroom door too, weren't you? With every word I spoke and every question I asked, Xiao Mo's face grew paler and paler. Actually, I don't need to answer. After all, Xiao Mo's expression had already given me the answer. No. That's not it. Xiao Mo spoke with a tremor in his voice and reached out to touch my sleeve. But I dodged him without him even noticing. It was at that moment that Xiao Mo finally broke down. He crouched down, clutching his head, as tears fell one by one onto the ground, filled with deep regret. I was just feeling a bit down. I was afraid your love for me was just a passing fancy, that you'd throw me away like trash, and that I wasn't good enough for you. I was wrong. Nuan. I was really wrong. Every single moment since I was reborn, I've deeply regretted hurting you in my previous life. I think heaven has been kind to me. I want to make up for everything that happened before, but you won't let me. But that's not love. I interrupted Xiao Mo. You've never loved me. Do you remember that monologue I delivered during the school play that day? Xiao Mo. I was talking to you. However, I think the last line is inappropriate. I looked at Xiao Mo and recited that monologue to him. I'm leaving. Heaven will reward those who are brave, strong, and compassionate. There were times when I wanted to give up, but he left a lingering ache somewhere deep inside me, the thought that it would always be there, throbbing faintly, and that my view of everything would lose all its luster because of that little bit of pain. I was scared. Loving you is the biggest mistake I've ever made. Goodbye. Xiao Mo. With that, I walked past him toward the classroom, leaving him all alone at the classroom door. He wept uncontrollably like a child. Xiao Mo committed suicide. When I heard the news, I had just received my acceptance letter from the film school of my dreams. My first film won 3 international awards, and I was honored with the Best Newcomer award. The day before the college entrance exam, he jumped from the top floor of the school building. Xiao Mo's mother spent the whole day at the school, determined to get an explanation from the administration. Some say Xiao Mo committed suicide because of excessive stress, while others say it was because he was overwhelmed by his romantic troubles. Someone had once seen Xiao Mo standing at the entrance to that alley on campus for a long time, holding a bouquet of roses. It was also a month later that someone dug up Xiao Mo's secondary account on that social media platform. But any posts about me on that account had long since been deleted without a trace. All that remains is a post he shared the day before he took his own life. Perhaps someone like me doesn't deserve a next life. Nor do I deserve to love you. I turned off my phone without a second thought. Even in his final moments, Xiao Mo was still spouting his self-righteous notions of love. But someone like him doesn't deserve to be loved. Nor does he deserve to love others. His death wouldn't make me feel sad either. Just like that line from the show. Heaven will reward those who are brave, strong, and compassionate. I will eventually reclaim the glory that is rightfully mine.